This conference will now be recorded.
Very good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of our Honorable Secretary General, Dr. G.P. Agarwal and Dr. Sanjeev Layak, Executive Secretary, WASME, heartily welcome Mr. Dhruva Trivedi, Chief Interventionist and Promoter, Mr. B.K. Dhup, former VP and HR SVONG, and Ms. Anubha Shankar, Senior Interventionist, for contributing her valuable and precious time to make available for organizing live webinar on morphing. My special thanks to Mr. Dhruva Trivedi for partnering WASME in this webinar. I also welcome all the dignitaries I also welcome all the dignitaries who have taken out valuable time to participate in this webinar. Let me brief about WASME, a global organization having member representatives in more than 100 countries, spearheading the cause and development and promotion of SMEs worldwide through policy advocacy, information dissemination, conferences, seminars, events, trainings, publication, network linkages, and many more since 1980. WASME has the consultative and observer status of United Nations. I am not going in detail as we have esteemed guests to discuss on our live webinar on morphing. Handing over mic to Ms. Anubha Shankar, Senior Interventionist. Thank you so much. Handing over mic to Anubha ma'am, please. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Megha. Thank you so much. Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening and a warm welcome. I am Anubha Shankar, Senior Interventionist for CON, the Strategic Interventionist, which is a 32-year-old consulting firm hand-holding MSME. We welcome you all to this live webinar on morphing. I would also like to extend my greetings and gratitude to WASME team for organizing this critically relevant webinar in the current market situation. It's my pleasure to welcome Mr. G.P. Agarwal, Secretary General, WASME, Dr. Sanjeev Layak, Executive Secretary, WASME, which is playing the host for this webinar. Our guest speakers of the day are Mr. Dhruv Trivedi, Chief Interventionist and Promoter, PERCON, and Mr. B.K. Dhup, Advisor, PERCON. I personally thank all the dignitaries and participants for being a part of this webinar. This webinar shall last for 1 hour. The first 40 minutes shall be taken up for presentation by the speakers on today's topic, and the last 20 minutes shall be allocated for live question and answers. Now allow me to briefly introduce PERCON, which started its journey in 1988. The name PERCON is an acronym of the term Performance Consulting. It was initially conceived to assist organizations in all people issues. The spectrum was wide, but the scope was limited in the late 80s, 1988, when we started. Even though successful training sessions were carried out, their content did not find its implementation at the workplace because organizations were not open to follow-up programs. That is when we started focusing on complementing approaches and methods and began hand-holding MSMEs for upgradation. While competition intensified, we found our way to something more sustainable, and that ultimate was contemporary competitive advantage. Transformation was the answer, and the process had to be geared with a holistic approach, with a definite direction, with ample and relentless handholding lent to the organizations. Transformation had to be sustainable. We at PERCON were inspired to address the deliverables differently, dedicated to the cause of MSMEs. We at PERCON specialize in change management, interventions, transformation, ultimately morphing, leadership coaching, training, psychometric testing, culture audits for due diligence, and we also plays an advisory role in recruitment. However, our core product or service is Morphing, for which this webinar has been devoted. Now, let me introduce our esteemed speakers of the day. Our first speaker is Mr. Dhruv Trivedi. He is the founder and head of Percon. He is a sociology honors graduate from Hindu College, Delhi, and a postgraduate from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. He has more than 45 years of corporate and consulting experience with him. This experience has been supported by his proficiency with the academic realm when he taught and headed management institutions. His vast consulting experience has been with companies like AT&T, Suzlon, TCS, Federal Mogul, JK Dairy and Foods, Sita World Travels, HCL, and many more. He has authored books, presented down many articles on management issues. He is a certified trainer for team scorecard and team-centered leadership. He has been acclaimed as thought leader by CIPD London. Our second speaker of the day is Mr. V.K. Dhruv, an advisor to Percon, is an engineering graduate and a postgraduate in management and systems from IIT Delhi. He has been head HR and L&D, full-time faculty for Ford School of Management, New Delhi Institute of Management, and visiting faculty for MDI, that means Management Development Institute. He is also the director CPLD, Program Director, Nottingham University, and faculty ISTD. He has over 30 years of industry experience in handling domains like technical, human resource, management, training and development, and administration function in a number of premier organizations with Tesco, Steel Authority of India Limited, Engineers India Limited, Sempatune, Shivani Oil and Gas Exploration Limited, and ONGC Coal Bed Methane Project at Jharkhand. He is also a recipient of National Award in Corporate Behavioral and Soft Skills Training. Now I shall hand over the floor to our first speaker, Mr. Dhruv Trivedi. Thank you. Dhruv sir, all yours.
Thank you, Anubha. Thank you, WASME, for having invited us over. Uh, and thank you, Dupsa, for being a big support to me. Thank you, Anubha, also for being a support. Uh, Let us start this conversation. I would call it a conversation because we're going to interact and we're not going to just make a presentation. So I would request all of you who are participating in this webinar to interact very, very intensely and very aggressively. Uh, Let me tell you before we actually start our presentation on morphine, I'm going to take you to some statistics which I thought was relevant for everyone to know. Of course, you being members of WASPE and also running MSMEs or part of MSMEs are already aware maybe, but I thought it was worthwhile taking you through these statistics once again. And let me share with you these statistics. According to the World Bank, the MSMEs represent about 90% of businesses and more than 50% of employment worldwide. So many of you are already aware of this. It is nothing new for many of you, but still, just to review the situation, to go back into the background, it was necessary for us to be on the same page, and therefore I thought it was necessary to take you through these statistics. According to CII, there are about 63.4 million MSME units in the country. And the percentage contribution towards the GDP from the manufacturing sector in MSMEs is 6.1, and the services sector is 24.3, which is enormous. I think many of us have to realize that 6.11 and 24.3 would take us beyond 32%, and therefore 31%, and therefore it is absolutely significant and relevant that we need to pay a lot of attention to MSMEs. 33.4% of India's manufacturing output is coming from the MSMEs. So again, nothing new, but many of us have to review this and get back to this background. As per the Directorate General of Commercial Intelligence and Statistics, the share of MSME-related products which are getting exported are, which the statistics have been available only till 2018 and 2019, because in 2020 we all know what has happened, and all of us had been going through a lot of depression in many ways. But these figures, which come from 2018 to 2019, has been 48.10%, which is again almost 50% of exports is from the MSMEs. Now let me take you to the next slide, which is again building the background for the presentation of Morphing. That is a study about a study that Grant and Thornton did. Grant and Thornton associated themselves with FICCI, Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, and during this association, they conducted a study, and with the help of FICCI, and their findings is what I have put on the slide. We have put on the slide that MSMEs need to be completely aware of the various initiatives by the government and correctly utilize these to their benefits. Now, one of the key constraining factors becomes awareness, and therefore lack of knowledge to utilize these effectively also becomes a handicap. Further, the government schemes must be monitored and effectively modified to suit to the needs to the MSME industry. So there are two sides to this picture, where the government is supposed to be gearing up, and also the MSME leadership to gear up to take up the challenges and understand, comprehend what the government schemes are and how they can be implemented. One more thing before we actually go to Morphing is about the branding. Now, these initiatives that we are undertaking and we propose to undertake with most of us here is not only directed to assist organizations to handle the government initiatives. We are also here to assist the organizations to equip themselves to be able to take those that assistance from the government initiatives, from the government. So, which means that not only we are equipping the organizations to take the challenges and the understanding with the government, but also helping to brand themselves, make themselves known, becoming competitive, having that competitive advantage. Now, any questions here? If you have any questions, you may raise your hands and you may ask some questions if you really have. No questions? So shall we proceed? Any questions? Okay. I don't see any questions coming in, so I take the liberty of going ahead. Here, morphing is something, as a concept, we need to understand what morphing is. Let us go to the next slide and we will understand what morphing is. What is morphing? Now, the word morphing has actually emerged from the word metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is a word which is very, very familiar to students of biology and those who have studied zoology or um, biology in detail. They would know what metamorphosis is. That is changing the display, changing the shape and size and dimensions and the looks of an animal. So that is metamorphosis. A typical example is what is shown in the picture, the caterpillar turning into a beautiful butterfly. What is morphing in industry, in information technology? The word morphing has been borrowed from the word metamorphosis, and it has been used in terms of displaying the changes in appearance in a picture. On the right hand side, the picture denotes how a car is turning into a tiger. Those of us who have watched the movie Terminator 2 would be very, very familiar with what morphing is, how information technology has been able to use the morphing technology in terms of changing appearances, in terms of changing the display of the object. Now, we must understand why are we using the word morphing? Now, how is it relevant to organizations? You see, Dr. Deepak Chopra, which a person whose name is very popular in the management world and also very popular in spirituality. He's a spiritual guru also in the United States. Dr. Deepak Chopra was the first person to have coined the term morphing or brought the term morphing from information technology into management. And his idea was that when an organization changes its display, it is actually called morphing of an organization. So whether it's a manufacturing unit as shown in the picture, or it is an information technology organization, or it is a services organization, every organization is susceptible to change, and therefore it is very, very relevant to our product, which is morphing, where we are helping organizations to change their display, to have that edge in the market and become the number one or the number two and make themselves prominent, make their brands prominent. Now, one thing which I would like to pledge here, or I would like to submit to the August audience which is here, that through these services of morphing, we are not promising anything great. We are not saying that today you are a 40 crore company, so tomorrow you'll become a 1500 crore company. We're not saying that. But what we are assuring, and definitely assuring, that the services that we offer help your organization to attain that platform from where you can take the leap, from where you can take the jump. And to attain that platform, there are various things that are necessary, and that is where we come in to handle the organizations, to tell them, to help them in establishing those norms, in establishing their approaches as to how we can come to that level, that platform. So, as stated earlier, morphing is change in the display of organizations. In this picture, you will find two pictures on the left actually and one on the right. The first one shows the linear growth of an organization. So an organization which is trying to survive, strive forward, usually in one direction is actually being depicted by the picture on the left. The picture on the right is actually growth, but growth in a multi-dimensional way, growth in different ways. You will see that it is growing like a tree, which means an organization becomes multi-dimensional. It has different ideas and different things in different areas to grow into. I'll give you a typical example. Say, for example, a small organization which is making switchgears. And there's a typical example which I can give you here is that of Havels. Havels was a switchgear manufacturing company somewhere in Faridabad in North India, and it was making only switchgears. And it was not really an organization which was growing in a multidimensional fashion. But today, if you see uh, Havels, you find that Havels has taken on Feder's Lloyd, it's manufacturing air conditioners, it is manufacturing refrigerators, it is making different forms of consumer electricals, and so on and so forth. So what I'm trying to convey here is that morphing is something, a service that we actually are extending to organizations to help for multi-dimensional growth and grow in a fashion where it can really get that competitive advantage. Now, competitive advantage is something which has been described in terms of marketing and also described in terms of organizational change. Uh, Michael Porter has been very significantly propounding the concept of competitive advantage. And it actually means that you are changing the position of the company in the market. So changing the position means shifting the gears. So in marketing, if it's a marketing oriented changing, position changing, then what happens is you are actually looking at the brands, you're looking at the product features, you're looking at the processes, the strategies for marketing, how you can change the display. So I hope I'm audible to everybody. Am I audible? If yes, can you please write yes? Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Okay. So when we are talking about shifting gears, we are talking about one way is to look at the marketplace. We are looking at the market totally, and therefore this is an outside-in approach. The market lies outside the organization, and you're looking inside to make the changes, address the market properly. Let me take you to the next slide, which will make it more clear. To reposition, we are actually having two ways. And one way is that we're looking outwards, which I was just referring to. I was referring to Michael Porter also, where we were talking about repositioning our product and changing the marketing strategy. The other is where later, after Michael Porter, we've had a professor from Michigan, University of Michigan, who wrote a book called The Organizational Capability. And in that book, he mentions about the changing of approaches and methods of work. So, which means that we are looking inside the organization. We are not only looking at the market, we are looking inside where we are looking at our own systems, our own people, whether we have the right methods, right approaches, right platforms within our organization. Is the method of work correct? Is it up to date? Is it benchmarked with the best of organizations? Are your people having approaches or the right kind of attitudes to conform to those methods of work? So these are questions that the one begins to ask, the leaders begin to ask, the top management begin to ask their own organization. But once they start asking those questions, then you are actually getting into a phase of changing from within. This is the time when you are not actually looking at the market only, you are looking at the market also, because the market is definitely something which you have got to serve eventually. So you are looking at the market, but you're also focusing more within the organization, and you're looking at your people, their attitudes, their methods of work. You have laid down methods of work, whether they are laid down or not, have you laid down the specific norms of work, etc., etc. So I will take a break here, and I will hand over the floor to Mr. D.K. Dhoop, who is a very senior person from the industry and has been an HR expert and has been also into interventions of the kind that we are doing. So I'll take you to Mr. Dhoop. I leave the floor to Mr. Dhoop now, and I think Mr. Dhoop, please, will you take over?
Thank you, Dr. Trivedi. It's a privilege to be addressing such an august gathering of professionals. A little about myself. I've been a consultant for a long time. I've been heading HR and strategy with Engineers India Limited, as Anuba already told. Now I'm also connected with a company known as a consulting organization known as Midas Consulting USA. So we keep on doing a lot of consulting work, and it's good that Dr. Dhruva Trivedi has involved me in this project also. So I would start with, what do we do to reposition our company in such a scenario? Michael Porter, as you would recall, in 1985, came out with a theory on cost focus and differentiation focus. He said, for repositioning business, we have two options. One is looking outwards, that is reposition our product or change our strategy for getting competitive advantage. Now here what we are contemplating is getting competitive advantage, because COVID-19 has very adversely affected not only companies in India, but globally. And MSME, I believe, has been affected very adversely. So we need to look at the possibilities, examine all the possibilities, how we can jump back into the arena. So now here we need to reposition our products and also devise strategies for getting competitive advantage in this scenario. As you are aware, Porter highlighted 5 factors: bargaining power of suppliers, bargaining power of buyers, threat of entrants, threat of new entrants, threat of substitutes, and rivalry between the competitors. So considering all these factors, already, as we have said, that we have to reposition our products or develop a strategy which will get us going. The second option available is looking inwards. When the organization look inwards, what do we mean? We mean it can create competitive advantage for itself through creating and sustaining superior performance through use of skill development of its employees and using upgraded technology, and also devising strategies befitting the situation. So now I will go to the next slide. Here we are talking of how do we how does the leader handle the situation? There are 5 essential parameters which the leader must look at. Number 1 is reflect. Number 2 is recommit. Reflect means reflect about what has happened till now and what needs to be done as a future course of action. Recommit means whatever resources are available at the command of the leaders, how do we commit these resources essentially for the benefit of the organization, considering the scenario when we post-COVID, whatever lessons we have learned, then how do we use them? And thirdly, we are talking about re-engaging our resources. That means leadership has to have a keen understanding about how to maximize the employee contribution, keeping in view their placement and potential, both the placement and potential. Then how do we place them? Where do we place them? Is it in sync with the strategy or not? And organizational objectives or not? So all those factors need to be looked at. And then rethink. Rethink, it is necessary that leadership. Can I request for the next slide, please? Yeah, you can read it from here. I've already mentioned these things, but some little explanation has been provided there. Now, rethink, when we have to think, when the leadership has to rethink, they have to essentially look at the learnings accrued from COVID-19. Whatever we are going through, the companies are going through, we have to learn from there and adapt certain strategies or devise certain strategies as to whatever learnings has accrued. How do we apply this learning during the post-COVID period? So that is what the leadership need to think about. And each and every company's options would be different. Whatever they have faced in the COVID arena, COVID duration period, it is very specific to them. So they have to look at all the possibilities, whatever learning has accrued, and then apply it post-COVID. And lastly, the 5th factor is reboot, which means leaders need to look at their resources available, as well as the work practices that they have adopted till now. Then people priorities means whatever employees have gone through and whatever HR policies have been framed during COVID period, how to take it forward, and HR practices as well as the technology, whatever technology, as we see, everything has become virtual. And so there has been a lot of learning. One is digitization, second one is artificial intelligence. Wherever we can learn from all these things, and wherever we can adopt new technology, we must do so. So whatever lessons have been learned through COVID-19, we must reboot all these and go for exponential growth. Try to go for exponential growth. Next slide, please. Now, considering all that, whatever I spoke above, there are 2 parameters emerging out of that. We have got change leaders, a lot of change. Huge change is facing us. We have to look at huge change, and we have to be prepared to handle the change as it comes. So, according to what we can think and deliberate now, is change leaders and change managers both have to work together. Though you would say that leaders and managers are same, but I would say that leaders and managers need to be same. However, if they are at a higher level, hierarchical level, then the vision and strategies are to be created, are to be devised by the leaders at the top level, and in doing so, they have to inspire they have to plan to inspire, motivate, and guide the employees, the people at large in the organization to meet the change positively, look at the change positively, and plan. And then managers need to plan and develop projects in order to facilitate, implement, and execute the change. It is easier said than done. So what I intend uh, to suggest that both leaders and managers should now start working together now and create the vision for the future post-pandemic. Similarly, strategies which they are going to adopt, they should work out those strategies. The managerial level people need to develop plans and work out the projects which will be facilitating, implementing, executing the change, whatever change has been envisioned by the leaders. So when we look at all the things, then three things emerge. Plan the thinking there phase. There are three phases: thinking phase, thinking there phase, implement the getting there phase. That means after thinking you get there, and sustain the living there phase. That means after ensuring, in order to sustain, that sustenance should be there, that living there phase should be worked out. So these things in mind, people have to, both the leaders and managers have to work together and move in that direction. Thank you so very much. It was a pleasure interacting. Can I ask some of the participants what is their view? How do they take it? Do they agree with this? If they agree, they can write agree in the chat box. Anyways, now I hand over to Dr. Trivedi again. Once again, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dupsar. Thank you very much. I am privileged that you could relate to so much of concepts in OD, organizational development. And incidentally, let me tell you all, share with you all, that our product, which we call Morphing, is primarily a blend of organizational development and total quality management. So when we are, why I am saying total quality management is because we have a lot of system changes to look forward to, a lot of work method changes to look forward to. And I personally call TQM is not total quality management, but total quality movement, because it is continuously happening. Now, let me take you to the next slide, that is looking outwards, which Mr. Dhup has already dwelt upon, but still I would like you to understand a little more that when we are talking about looking outwards, we are actually thinking about addressing the market, which I have also stated earlier. And when you are addressing the market, you are actually looking at your product, how it is addressing the market, how is it acceptable in the market, how is it coming into the market, how people are looking at the product properly. Now, here, I think every 3 years, you need to make the product feature changes, because every 3 years, your product becomes obsolete in one way or the other. Therefore, you will see that cars which were manually being operated, now you have power windows, you have power steering, and you have balloon bags. And so all these features are product feature changes that are happening. Also, I think changing the marketing strategies should happen every 3 years. And when you're changing these strategies, what happens is that you are actually looking at your distribution channels, you are appointing new dealers, you are appointing a new way of channelizing a product into the market. But if you look at this understanding, if you look at this process, you will see that although you will gain competitive advantage for a while, but again, you'll come to a plateau because there will be others who will also make product feature changes. Your competitors will make changes in their market strategies. So you will probably again be in a similar situation where you are competing with your competitors in the same manner as you were earlier, before the product feature changes. So therefore, when we are talking about morphing, we are looking at changing the organization from within. Why we are saying that is because uh, once you change your approaches, your people's attitudes, you change your work methods, you are actually equipped with competencies and capabilities within the organization to address the market at any point of time. In case of the earlier approach where you are looking outwards, even a product development person or product design person can handle that, and a good salesperson can handle implementing the marketing strategies. But if you are looking inwards, then you are actually raising the level of your own people and you are raising the level of your operations. And therefore, you are actually getting equipped to take on the challenges all the time, take on the challenges which the market, is confronted with. You are confronted with in the marketplace. So therefore, looking inwards is a more sustainable, more consistent uh, answer to the changes, the challenges of change. I am going to depict to you a situation here where a typical organization is faced with the change that is helped out with a lot of hand-holding that is done here in terms of morphing. The deliverable model, we are just talking about the deliverable model. We are talking about one state of organization where we are talking about the organization A, which is not very happy because the people are inconsistent in performing practices. They're displacing the responsibilities. That means they're not taking on responsibilities. They indulge in ritualistic practices. What is being followed, they keep on following that. And they're emotionally detached. Their commitment levels are also not very much uh, focused onto the organization. The processes here are undocumented, in a state of inconsistency in the face of change, and tend to be driven in an ad hoc manner. So, because uncontrolled and reactive manner by users or the events. So, at a particular time, a challenge is faced. You come up with an idea, you address the challenge, you may come up with a solution, but that is only for time being. Next time, another challenge comes up, which is slightly different from the previous one. You are falling back onto ad hoc arrangements. So there is nothing consistent about it, and therefore you are left with a chaotic and a very unstable environment. This with the help of morphing, however, this organization goes into the other phase where the people become committed, they own their responsibilities, they become resilient, that is, they become flexible, they are interdependent, they don't work in silos, they become customer oriented. Say, for example, an operations person who's working on the shop floor today in the previous organization, in the previous situation, you will find that he is not very much familiar with what is happening in the market with regard to his product. But with morphing, we are helping him to learn about what the customer wants, and therefore a lot of customer orientation comes in. Looking forward to learning and development. So the organization is in a spiral where it is continuously going up through its learning and development. And what kind of processes this morphed organization will have is it will use metrics to measure whatever it is doing. It will not leave it to ad hoc situations. It will measure. It can adapt to particular projects without measurable losses of quality or deviations from its specifications. So a lot of engineering aspects are being applied here. A lot of industrial engineering is being applied along with people attitudes, people coaching, people training, people counseling. And they're driven towards the big picture. So they come to a picture, they come to a situation where they can look at the big picture. So if you visit our website, you will find that there are various case studies which are mentioned. And some of these organizations had not even thought about the big picture. Today, an organization would probably started with 40 crores when we started our interventions. And today it's a 2,200 crore company, not entirely because of us, but yes, we brought them to a platform where they could think about 2,200. So that is what we do in morphing. I will not discuss the tools here because the tools are technical tools, and it is also prerogatives of PERCON to preserve these tools for itself. And once you decide to come into taking assistance from PERCON through WASME, and because you can always get in touch with WASME to get our assistance. And if you take our assistance, then you will probably get to be knowing as to what kind of tools we use. But all this is actually meant to attain a sustainable contemporary advantage. So contemporary competitive advantage is there, but it becomes sustainable because we are looking inwards. We are actually changing the approaches. We are helping you to streamline all your methods, resources, attitudes, knowledge, and skills. And even looking at these things, we help the entire organization to look at the marketplace as to how it can be addressed. So it is actually changing the levels as I had suggested earlier. Changing the levels of the organization, changing the levels of work, changing the levels of methods, changing the levels of thinking. Now, every organization would like to get into this situation. Industry 4 is the order of the day, is the world is walking into Industry 4 where digitalization is the answer. Now, why we are showing this is not because we will take you to Industry 4, but we are showing you this because this is the dream every organization has. And in order to make this dream materialize, you will have to come to a certain level. The organizations will have to come to a certain level. And that is the level that we are talking about. That is the level where we thought we can bring people into our organizations into thinking of that frame, that comprehension should be there with every organization, especially the MSMEs, because MSMEs need a lot of handholding in order to equip themselves to address the market. So that is what we feel we can do for you. And let me tell you, describe to you the kind of products and services we have. Our, as Anubha had already said in the beginning, our primary focus lies in change management, interventions, transformation, morphing. That is, morphing is the main thing that we are doing. But we also simultaneously do a lot of leadership coaching, where we are personally doing one-to-one coaching for leaders to bring in the best benchmarking, to make them think differently, to make them think differently about their own organizations and about themselves, their own selves also. We are also doing training, we are doing psychometric testing. Let me tell you, let me confess one very important thing here is that psychometric testing has been of great help to us in changing attitudes. because we have administered these tests, and we found that with the results coming in, people really go berserk. They really do not want to believe that their tests are revealing something. So it's a revelation for each one individual who goes through this testing. So a lot of attitudinal change comes about through psychometric testing. When we do post-psychometric testing counseling, we also do culture audits, and this is organization culture audits, where two organizations are trying to merge. We do we do due diligence studies, and this is from the cultural point of view, not the financial point of view. So we do cultural due diligence and cultural audits, and we also provide advisory roles in recruitment. We are not a placement people, but we do advise organizations as to how they can handle recruitment better. So that is the sum and substance of what our products and services are. But let me take you back to product number one. If we are handling morphing for any organization, all these other points will automatically get encompassed in that. When we do change management interventions, it involves leadership coaching, it involves training, it involves psychometric testing, it involves cultural audits also, and there are many other tools also which we use, which, for instance, cross-functional teams, etc., etc. So there are many other things which I am not mentioning here. Once I get the confirmation or commitment from the client or the would-be client, then only it is, I think, necessary that we can reveal the actual tools that we are going to use. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we almost are at the end of our presentation. Why almost? I think we are at the end of the presentation. So if there are any questions, please go ahead and ask. You're welcome to ask any kind of question. We are equipped to, I suppose we are equipped to handle or address your questions.
The forum is open for question and answer session. Any questions from the participants for the speakers?
You're most welcome to put any question. You can put it in the chat box and I will take it up.
You can write on the chat box also, or you can ask right now also.
Any questions from participants? We are waiting for the question answer round. Thank you.
Sir, I have one question. That MSMEs are the backbone of our country, and they are just contributing. MSMEs are the backbone of our country. They are contributing to 30% to GDP, generating 70 to 80% of the employment, and out of that, 95% are the micro, having turnover less than 5 crore rupees.
Absolutely.
So what kind of solution or what kind of morphing process they can get, so that, and they are the one-man show. They are the owner, they are the marketing man, they are the, what kind of strategy you can just, or what kind of this COVID area, they have already disrupted their businesses, they are not getting, and they are just struggling to have sustain in the business, and means 1/3 of the MSMEs, they will vanish after this COVID. Yes, that is the thing. So what, according to you,
what is the question, Sandeep?
Your expertise, what kind of solution the micro organizations should have. Yes.
Yeah. So I think let me address because your question has many parts. So let me address one by one. In order to understand what we have to do with the organization, the first thing that we do is we do a diagnostic study so that as consultants and as an organization, we are on the same page. When we produce the findings of the diagnostics, we discuss with the client and we share with the client as to what your the current situation is and how we can address these questions, address these situations. Because every organization is very typical by its own way. You cannot have a generalized answer to all organizations. The organization will have to be studied. It has to be understood what is the frame in which they are working, it has to be comprehended as to what are the loopholes, what are the lacunae, and how they can be addressed. Now, generally, if you're talking about COVID, the COVID times are very testing times. We all agree. And all of us have suffered. It is not only MSMEs, not only the micro organizations, even the bigger organizations have suffered. But generally in COVID, you have to follow certain norms. Your productivity falls, your marketing effectiveness falls, so everything goes down. But within that framework, within those COVID norms, as to how we can assist an organization to address and maintain or sustain the competitiveness is something which can be understood only when the organization, individual organization, is studied and a diagnostic study is conducted and their systems are understood and the lacunae found out. So it will be addressed, there's a micro mechanism, I would say, where interventions will prevail.
So, as far as the challenges are concerned, most of the, I can just generalize that most of the micro organizations, they are facing with the credit. Three pillars of business: credit, technology, and the market. The credit part, they are not getting the working capital, they are not slow because of the delayed payment from the top organizations, Navratna and all government organizations. That is one of the challenges. Another means due to COVID, means everything is means that lockdown. They are just losing customer. They are not able to provide the orders in time. So there may be so many means these are the generalized means problems or issues faced by the micro organization, because we have been already advocating to the government of India for a stimulus package and other types of support, and they have already responded with various types of stimulus package, and our honorable Prime Minister has already announced for the vocal for local. So the main thing is the credit. And another part, they have to survive or sustain in this, that is the digitization. So these are the two parts. One is the credit, that is the loan or any kind of working capital, because they are not getting orders and all. So how to address?
See, that is what I was mentioning in the answer to your previous question. Each organization has to be studied specifically. But let me tell you, your question in terms of the uh, availing the loans, getting the funds for addressing finances, and to make a viable working capital to address the market. I think funds are required, there's no doubt about it. And the government is making those funds available. Banks are open to giving out loans. Now, here, I think a major factor which comes as a hurdle is the motivation of the leader who's heading the organization. the founder or whoever he is, he may be the CEO or he may be the founder himself, he may be the entrepreneur himself. A lot of motivation will be required for him to capture the loans, to avail the loans, and also understand as to how he is going to deploy those funds. Because it is not only getting the funds, it is also making the funds available and also deploy the funds in the workplace or in the marketplace. So that is possible only when we know the systems, only when we know what the organizations are wanting. And let me tell you here, Sanjeev, that one thing where we have, what I just mentioned was motivation. The founder, the entrepreneur, the CEO has to motivate, has to be motivated, and he has to go through a lot of leadership coaching, which is a part of our morphing exercise. Or if the organization just wants leadership coaching, that also we can provide. And here the leadership coaching will get into the factors of not only availing the loans, but also the deployment part of it, so that he has the advantage of setting things right.
Thank you, sir, for valuable suggestions, sir. Any participant can just put forward his or her
Can I give
question?
my
Yeah.
views? Sanjeev ji, can I give my views
Yes, yes.
to your question?
Yes, sir.
I described 5 factors. You know, those 5 factors are very important at this point in time when all the leaders should sit together, discuss everything, the future course of action. As Dr. Dhruva already mentioned, that motivating the workforce is very important, and charting out, strategizing, and charting out the future course of action is also very important. The other day, I was attending a webinar hosted by Mr. Rajiv Chawla, uh, who is a chairman of IMSME of India. So he was also mentioning that because of COVID, a lot of adversity has befallen MSME sector, and it is important that MSME should utilize this time to train their workforce and chart out and strategize and work out the future course of action. So I believe this is what can be done to the best advantage of MSME as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you for your suggestions, sir. Valuable suggestion. Any other question? Floor is open for question answer. No question.
Sir,
I'm
I
a bit
don't think
surprised.
people have
I, I,
question.
Yes, sir. Yeah, Mr. Dup, you want to
no, I
say
was
something?
I'm just mentioning that so many very senior professionals are there, and this is a good opportunity to briefly discuss, and whatever interaction would be there, that would be really useful. So I implore all the senior professionals present here to come out and at least give some suggestions so that we can work out some of on those lines.
We will also share the YouTube link to all the other connections. Those who have not been participated in this webinar, we will certainly share so that we can have some suggestions from them also. Yes, sir. No question. So I will request Megha or Anubha, ma'am, would you like to say something? Megha, you can go for. I would like to request you
I
to go for vote of thanks. Yeah.
on behalf of World Association for Small and Medium Enterprises, it's a great honor to propose the vote of thanks to all guest speakers, participants, and WASME team. I would like to thank you, our distinguished speaker, Mr. Dhruva Trivedi, Chief Interventionist and Promoter, Mr. B.K. Dup, former VP and HR SEO and G, and Ms. Anubha Shankar, Senior Interventionist, for making excellent presentation and making this webinar interesting and meaningful. I would also like to thank our Honorable Secretary General, Dr. G.P. Agarwal and Dr. Sanjeev Laik, Executive Secretary, WASME, for support and guidance. I once again thank you all of you for making this webinar successful with your contribution. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megha. Thank you, sir. Mr.
Thank you.
Dhruvat Trivedi, Dhruv sir,
Thank you
and
so much.
Anubha ma'am. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, lad.
All the, yeah, thank you, sir. All the participants, they can